Hey folks, this is Kalani. The next WoW expansion was just announced. I hope you're all ready for Dragonflight. From what we've seen so far, this expansion is ticking a lot of the right boxes. We're going back to Azeroth for a more down-to-earth storyline. We'll be working alongside some familiar faces, from Rathian to Alexstrasza and the rest of the Dragonflights. There's a new flying mechanic. So many parts of the game are getting overhauled, including talents and professions, and many key points of feedback from the most recent expansions are actually being taken into account. It looks like Dragonflight is making all the right moves to become a very good expansion. There's a lot going on in this one, so let's go through everything we know about the Dragonflight expansion so far, the features we can expect, and how everything is shaping up. Before we jump in, be sure to hit up that like button and subscribe so you never miss another video. The Dragonflight expansion will be taking us to an entirely new continent on Azeroth, the Dragon Isles. We've been talking about the Dragon Isles for a while now, kind of expecting to see them sooner or later, and that time has finally arrived. The Dragon Isles is going to consist of 5 new zones. The first zone we come to is the Waking Shores, a wild land with raging elements, bubbling lava mountains, tall rocky spires with lush greenery and waterfalls. The Horde and Alliance team up with an expedition of scientists and the Red Dragonflight to solve the zone's problems and reclaim the ancestral home of the Black Dragonflight. Some of the inhabitants we can expect to see are the Jardin, which are longtime rivals of the Dragonflights, who are half giants that wield the power of magma, and of course the Ducks. The Anaran Plains is the second zone we'll quest through in Dragonflight. It's a wide open plains home to many, including the centaurs, the fantastical green dragonflight groves, and other various animals for us to hunt down. It's named after Onara, the wild god of the wind, who brought the centaurs to the Dragon Isles. The devs mentioned how the scale of this zone is vast, and they increased the view distance to really allow room for us to fly around on our dragons to explore all the secrets the zone has to offer. The third zone we adventure through may become a fan favourite, the Azure Span. Its design is inspired in part by the gorgeous redwood forest of Grizzly Hills from Wrath of the Lich King, with an autumn-coloured tundra which transitions to icy mountains. It's the biggest zone in Dragonflight, and maybe even the largest zone in WoW to date. There will be a large elevation change, with us starting in the forest and making our way up through the orange-red tundra, and into the bulk of the zone composed of snowy mountains and frozen waterfalls. The forest and snow knolls are some of the inhabitants, along with the beloved Tuskar. We'll quest with the blue dragon Kalagos and explore through Sindragos's archives as we adventure through the zone. And finally we have Thaldraszus, the pristine seat of power of the 5 Dragonflights and home of the dragons. It's filled with vertical mountains, caves, and a neat area that belongs to the Bronze Dragonflight. The new player hub and main city in the expansion is also here, and it's called Valdrakken. It's a city inspired by all 5 Dragonflights with individual distinct sections, like a library that belongs to the Blue Dragonflight, and the Red and Green Dragonflights also both have their own separate gardens. We're also going to have an auction house in the main hub this time, so no more popping back and forth to Orgrimmar. All of these zones are supposed to be huge, and Dragon Isles is being touted as one of the largest continents we've ever seen in WoW. I don't know if that claim includes the Eastern Kingdoms and Kalimdor, because if it does, this place is going to be massive. They want to focus on wide open spaces this time so the zones don't feel cramped and pushed together. One of the major new features that will help you traverse these massive zones is dragon riding. We'll be able to use a new dragon companion to kind of fly from the start of the expansion. I say kind of fly because this is a new system that works very similarly to the Guild Wars 2 flying mounts if you've seen or know how they work. It's all about physics and momentum. I guess you could call it falling with style. You dive, glide, ascend, barrel roll. It all looks very cool. The higher your starting perch, the further and longer you can fly. The top speeds of dragon riding are also going to be faster than our fastest flying mounts, so you can very quickly get from point A to point B as long as you start somewhere high up. Jumping off of cliffs is going to be incredibly fun in this new expansion, and there will definitely be an element of skill to this. If you can master dragon riding, this system alone could be a lot of fun, and you can find yourself in all manner of secret areas. We're also going to have a progression system to work through to increase the effectiveness of dragon riding, and we'll basically be learning how to train our dragon. A big part of this system is going to be customizing your dragon as well. There are currently 4 base dragon models that you can pick from, a proto-drake, a pterodactyl type dragon, and then 2 more standard drake style models. You can see the animations for these models on the Dragonflight website, and they should serve as an interesting foundation for your new dragon riding buddy. Apparently all 4 base types have more than 50 customization options each already, giving you the ability to fine-tune and tweak how you want your dragon to look. Some of these options include armor to collect and show off on your dragon too, and I hope they really take this idea and run with it. Dragon armor could be the new transmog of the expansion and another way to show off your dedication to your character. Now you may be thinking, hold on a second, you said 5 zones. I did, you're correct. The 5th and final zone is a special one because it's a starter zone. A new starter zone can only mean one thing: a brand new race. This brand new race is called the Drakthea, and they're going to work a little differently when compared to the others because they can only be one class, a new class, the Evokers. The Drakthea are basically dragonkin. You have a dragon form and a humanoid form that you can customize individually with horns, scales, snouts, eyes, tails, you name it. While you can swap freely between these 2 forms out in the world, it looks like you will be forced into the dragon form during combat. The main reason for this is probably because the Evoker class is all about draconic power. You can unleash the various magics of the 5 dragonflights to help your allies or hinder your foes. We're talking fire breathing, magic spells, shiny green healing circles, and there's also the promise of bronze dragonflight timey-wimey shenanigans, which I am very much looking forward to. The Evokers have 2 specs, one for range DPS and one for healing, so this is the first time we're getting a new range DPS spec added into the game, and it will be another healing spec to go alongside all of the others. With only 2 specs, I do worry that they won't have too many options, but hopefully each spec is fleshed out enough for that to not be a problem. Drakthea Evokers are going to start at level 58, so they're going to skip most of the leveling portion of the game and they'll start right on the Dragon Isles ready to go. We do know that the current plan is for both the Drakthea race and the Evoker class to be made available during the 10.0 pre-patch just before the expansion launches, so we should be able to get them up to 60 and ready to join everyone else on the shores of the Dragon Isles. If you're wondering how dragons riding dragons is going to work for the dragon riding feature, apparently the Drakthea will have some level of dragon riding baseline baked into their own dragon form, so you can jump off high places and fly around without a mount. That sounds incredibly cool. The dragon riding feature will still be important for the progression and customization options though. Another big change coming in Dragonflight is going to be to the standard base UI for the entire game. This hasn't really been updated in the entire lifespan of World of Warcraft, and you can kind of tell. Well, we're going to go from this to something like this. So you can see the art assets have been updated, the health bars and action bars look different, and the mini-map looks completely different. We will also be able to move everything around by default. This should remove the need for quite a few add-ons. It's not just the UI that's getting overhauled though, the talent system is being completely remade. We are going back to talent trees. The trees look to be quite large from what we've seen, and we have 2 trees to work through. One tree will focus on the class as a whole with plenty of utility options and you can specialize how you want. Then we have an entirely separate tree for your specialization and your spec, which is where a lot of your throughput options will be. With so many talent points available, hopefully we will see a lot of different build options so you can play each class and spec in a variety of ways. It's also worth noting that with talent trees back, we won't see quite as many pseudo talent trees in the form of systems. If you think about it, many of the borrowed power systems from recent expansions have tried to fill the hole left by talent trees, and almost all of them looked like a talent tree anyway. If you look at artifact weapons, azurite armor, essences, soulbinds, conduits, and even covenant abilities, all of that stuff was usually available as new talents. A shift back to talent trees as a permanent feature also means a shift away from borrowed power systems, which is great in my opinion. Another huge addition to these talent trees is the ability to save preset loadouts and change things up on the fly. So if you want one setup for Mythic Plus and one setup for Raid, that's super easy to do and you can save those profiles to load instantly. If you want to go one step further and have one setup for single target raid, one for raid bosses with ads, one for Tyrannical Week, another for Fortified Week, something set up for soloing content, and then maybe throw another one in for PvP, that also those seems to be in the cards. You can save a lot of presets by the looks of things, which is fantastic to see. And if you thought a new talent system was awesome, wait until you see what lies in store for professions. The entire system is being turned on its head. We're going to see better progression options. There will be a talent tree for each profession to let you specialize down different paths. There's new cosmetic gear, crafting tables, quality variations, so the more you put into your professions, the better the gear you can make, to the point where you could end up being well known for being the best at what you do on your server. People could end up seeking you out specifically for a job, which is the pinnacle of crafting fantasy, really, isn't it? There's also going to be a new system in the works to help out with this called work orders. This sounds kind of like an auction house, but literally for crafting orders. So you can create an order for an item you want crafted, you can supply as many or as few as the materials you want or have access to, and then offer up a gold fee for players to complete your order. This opens up some very interesting opportunities. First, you can make an order incredibly specific so you get exactly what you want, assuming there is a player that can actually fill that order. Second, you don't have to trade materials back and forth, so there's no risk of losing things to a bad trade, and your cost up front is established. Removing the trading aspect also means you can then use bind on pickup materials for these orders. You just supply them through the work order. This creates an entirely new dynamic where you can obtain rare and valuable materials and still benefit from high-level crafting, even without having that crafting yourself. On the flip side, you can focus entirely on the crafting side of things without needing to obtain those rare materials by yourself, but you can still then get the finished product. The power level of crafted items is also apparently going to be huge in Dragonflight and could even rival mythic raid gear. That is for the best of the best of the best, with all of the time investment that comes with the progression though, so it's not going to be easily accessible, but you will have a lot to do if you really love crafting. Dragonflight could be a massive turnaround for professions and crafting in general, and I'm very excited to see it all come together in the testing phases. We also have a tiny sneak peek about what the first raid could be about. On the Dragonflight website, they say we'll venture into the ancient prison of the primal incarnates before their malevolent power can be unleashed against the dragon aspects. So while we don't have a big bad to chase down just yet, I guess the Dragon Isles have all manner of hidden secrets and powerful enemies that are trying to rise up and wreak havoc. So we're back to local issues with more manageable expectations, I would say. That's going to be a nice change of pace, and a primal incarnate raid has so much potential for cool environments, bosses, and gear. Speaking of gear, we also know that tier gear will be sticking around as we head into Dragonflight, and the dev team really enjoyed how accessible tier gear was in patch 9.2, so I would expect tier gear to drop from the raid as per usual, while other options are introduced for other types of players. Surprisingly, we do have a sneak peek at what this first Dragonflight tier set could look like. This is concept art, so obviously it's going to look slightly different when it's in game on our models, but some of these sets look absolutely fantastic. If they translate well in-game, these could end up being some of the best sets we've seen in a long time. I'll let you try figure out who is who in this picture. I think I can point out quite a few for sure, but you never know with some of these sets. And then of course, a new expansion wouldn't be complete without a new round of dungeons. We don't have too many specifics about what kinds of dungeons we might see, or how they'll fit into the story, or what kinds of enemies we'll be facing off against, but we should get at least 8 new dungeons to start with. In addition to new dungeons, the Mythic Plus system is going to work quite differently as well. While we'll still have keystones and levels and all that jazz, it looks like the dev team wants to try something new this time. The current plan is for Season 1 of Dragonflight to only have 4 Dragonflight dungeons as part of the Mythic Plus pool. That means if we start with 8 dungeons total, only half of them will be available for Mythic Plus keystones. In addition to those 4, the dev team will also bring 4 older dungeons into the Mythic Plus pool, for a total of 8 dungeons you can run keystones for. 4 new dungeons and 4 old dungeons. This might seem like a really weird choice, but apparently going into Season 2 of Dragonflight, they're going to change it all up. So the other 4 Dragonflight dungeons will then be Mythic Plus enabled, with a different 4 older dungeons added in. That means that the dungeons you run in Season 1 and Season 2 of Dragonflight will be entirely different. That's definitely going to shake things up and potentially fix the stagnancy problem that Mythic Plus dungeons tend to have as an expansion ages. We'll have to wait and see how it plays out though. Having 8 brand new dungeons is going to be a lot of fun as per usual, but then only having access to half of them for the first season for Mythic Plus, which is the main dungeon activity at endgame now, is going to be quite disappointing. I imagine this is definitely something that is subject to change though, so if you feel super strongly one way or another about this potential change, be sure to make your voices heard on the forums. And then the other major cornerstone of endgame content, PvP, also has some massive changes in store. PvP gear is returning to the Warlords of Draenor era, and all PvP gear will be normalized across the board, but they're also continuing with the PvE and PvP gear split. So a piece of PvP gear will have its PvP item level, which will always be the highest it can be, apparently on par with Mythic Raid gear, so everyone in Conquest gear is at the same item level in PvP, no matter who you are or what you do. That gear will then also have a PvE item level which progresses as it does in Shadowlands. It starts off at the lower end and you can upgrade it with honor with some rating requirements thrown in. This essentially means PvP will become heavily skill-based, with gear not making much of a difference at all. I think that's a good thing for PvP personally. It should be about skill, not item levels, and you can still use PvP gear in PvE, you just have to upgrade it a bit to keep it relevant. And then real quick before we wrap up this video, we do know that Renown will be making a return for Dragonflight, but it's not a one-to-one copy of Shadowlands. Apparently Renown is going to be used for the new reputations in Dragonflight, and we'll be able to progress all of them at once. So you don't have to pick just one and work on that until it's max and then move on. We can work on all of these renowns at the same time, earn rewards with everyone, and generally just do what we want. We'll be able to unlock cool cosmetic rewards as well as additional quest lines in gameplay. I'm a little apprehensive that it's still called Renown, but if it is really more open with no restrictions on who we can earn renown with, it could end up being a much better system overall. We also know that there is not going to be any Azerite power or artifact power equivalent grind system planned for Dragonflight, so you don't have to worry about that. Well, not yet anyway. There's also no major system with borrowed power, so no new covenants, no aspect abilities, no system tied to player power with non-class abilities or active powers. With everything else crammed into this expansion so far, I doubt there would be much room left. I think this could end up being a great expansion which a lot of people can hop back into and enjoy. Between the more down-to-earth story and returning to Azeroth, the friendly faces I'm sure we all remember, an expansion themed around dragons, and all of these crazy new features like dragon riding, new actual talent trees, huge zones to explore, and a new class and race on top of all of that, yeah, I think it's looking good. And then the very last thing to mention in this overview is when we can expect to see some of this stuff in game. We don't have an official date for alpha or beta, but some folks with close relations with Blizzard seem to think we should see alpha start up in about 2 months. So we don't have to wait too long, but that also means we might not see anything for a little while yet. The good news is that alpha or beta signups are already active, so if you want to jump in early to help test the Dragonflight expansion and make it as good as it can be, pop on over to the Dragonflight website, scroll down to the bottom and hit opt in for beta. That's the only way you'll get in without having to resort to key giveaways and things like that. But that's all we know about the Dragonflight expansion so far. What do you think from all of this info? Which part of the announcement are you most excited about and least excited about? Is there anything you really hope makes it into the game? Or maybe something you hope the dev team removes? Leave all your thoughts in the comment section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon and to everyone who subscribed on Twitch. You can see the names floating by on screen. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss another video. Thanks for watching folks, go look and have fun, and as always I'll see you next time.